What does it mean, will not accept unsolicited scripts? What does this really mean?
I mean, it protects you on two levels. It protects you from reading too many scripts because, I mean, there's just way too many scripts out there to read. So not accepting unsolicited submissions just basically means that you can't just send me a script without me asking to see it. I mean, that's the fundamental meaning of the phrase. And so if someone says, hey, I want to send you my script, you can just say, oh, we don't accept unsolicited submissions. But the truth is, I mean, agents send you unsolicited submissions all the time. You know, you're like, oh, do I want to read this? Well, but you know, the idea is that it also protects the production company or the studio from lawsuits from people who maybe have an idea that's similar to something that you end up making. And I think it's also kind of a fallacy because I think almost everybody ultimately accepts unsolicited submissions. So,
well, that being said, what does a screenwriter have to do to get their scripts into a producer's hands?
I mean, that's a career. That's a career right there. You have to have a career, I think, is the most important thing. You know, you have to really be in it for a lifetime. You have to, you know, I think there are people who come to screenwriting thinking they can write a screenplay and sell it and that's it. And it's just not the case. You have to just be going and writing something new and sending it to people and being out there meeting people. And I think it's a lifetime to get things read by people that are meaningful. And you have to be willing to commit to that lifetime of work, basically. And if you do, yes, people will read it ultimately because over the course of submitting to agents and submitting to contests and making stuff on YouTube and doing other things and trying to have a job in the business, you know, you meet people. But I don't think there's any simple answer to that question as far as like, here's the thing you have to do. You have to do all those things, you know. Go to conferences, go to festivals, watch movies, call people you don't know, make stuff for social media, make stuff, you know, be passionate, write new things. It's funny, this book, Super Ritz, there was a producer who was interested in making it as a showrunner who was interested in making it as a TV show. And we went back and forth. I'm very much at the point I wrote the book. I was thinking I would probably never write another screenplay again. So I was like, yeah, go make it, please. I'd love you to do it. And then whatever, over time, we started to collaborate on it. Then she got busy, and now basically we have a version of this book that we're gonna do, but I'm gonna write it. And she was like, you know, worst comes to worst, you have a great sample. And I'm like, really? Do I need another great sample? I mean, I have 2 seasons of a show on TV. I have endless specs that haven't been made. I have a pilot that I made with Matthew Lillard and Blythe Danner. Do I need another sample? And she was like, you always need another sample. And she's much more successful than I am. And I was like, you know, maybe I should just stop whining about how hard it is and just keep going, because that's the thing. I mean, I just sat down with a kid who went to my college who had written a script and was asking me how to get it read, and I didn't have a good answer for him. And I think what I'm offering here as an answer is a more realistic answer. Like, you have to do everything, and there's no simple answer. You really have to have like a vibrant network of collaborators and colleagues and mentors, and you know, find ways to showcase your talent that get people interested in reading what you're doing, because nobody wants to read a screenplay in Hollywood. I think that's the truth, is that people really don't want to read screenplays. And you know, you look at the movies and the television shows that get made, they come mostly now from novels and podcasts and magazine articles, and it's like, that's where Hollywood is looking to find its stories. So, I mean, I think it's you know, you obviously need to master the craft of screenwriting, and to master the craft of screenwriting requires writing and reading a lot of screenplays. But the stories for the stuff that's getting made seem to come from other places. And I think writers have to embrace that idea and figure out ways to make IP that maybe isn't a screenplay that they can then turn into a screenplay at some point.
Were you into comic books?
No.
Never a comic
Never.
book
And you know, it's
person?
interesting, in the 90s, there was a guy who I can't remember what the name of the company was, where he would just make comic books that were solely designed to become movies. You know, there would be like one episode, basically. I think Cowboys versus Aliens is maybe an example of that. I can't remember the studio, but I mean, I think DreamWorks made that, but I think it was no, I can't remember what it was, but you know, it was interesting. I was like, I'm not interested in comics, and this guy would come around and he'd pitch you his comics. But you know, obviously, comics have defined Hollywood for the past 10 years. So, and you know, there is something intriguing. There was a couple of my screenplays, I was like, oh, I should turn these into comics so that I can then sell the screenplay. And that's a viable thing to do. I never did it. I certainly talked to a couple people about it, but could never find the property that fit exactly. And now, when you present your screenplay, you have to have, visuals to support the screenplay, and you're basically, your pitch deck is sometimes kind of like a graphic novel by the time it's finished, especially now with, the tools of AI to help you make it into something more polished.
We imagine that you've received your share of screenplays in the past. What are some of the wrong ways that people have approached you or the company that you've worked for to pitch those screenplays and get them into someone's hands?
I mean, I think the worst thing I ever get is we read my friend, my nephew, my whatever it is, person's screenplay, and you're asking me to take time out of my own personal life, creative life, professional life to read something that you're not even invested in. I mean, I think it's very important that when you're pitching an executive or a producer or someone who could help get your project made, that you believe in it, that you think it needs to be getting turned into a movie. Because you're asking a lot of someone to read your work, and you have to really believe in it. So the assumption that my time is less valuable than yours is really demoralizing and discouraging.
Do you think, though, people in other parts of the U.S. or world don't realize that? There's like this Hollywood etiquette where it is sort of a touchy thing, or has this happened here? So I'm wrong in that.
Well, I think, Los Angeles is not just a one-company town anymore. I mean, there's people doing all kinds of things here. So you brush up against civilians all the time who are like, hey, would you read my nephew's screenplay? And there was that famous article, I don't remember who wrote it, maybe, I want to say it was the Batman screenwriter, I can't remember who it was, who said, I will not read your screenplay.
Right, yes. There's a whole Reddit thread, I think.
Yes.
About it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've become more sympathetic. I used to read everybody's everything because when I came to Hollywood, people were so helpful to me. People who had no reason to be helpful were helpful. And I really have always wanted to extend the same courtesy to anybody else who's coming to Hollywood, that I want to help people get their foot inside the door. I understand how difficult it is to scale the wall, and I want to do everything I can for the newcomers. But, everyone has to respect your time as well, and I think also coming back again and again with the same project is annoying. I'm sure your rewrite feels significant to you, but a lot of times you pass on a project because the idea does not appeal to you, no matter how well executed it is. And I think sometimes screenwriters, especially new screenwriters, think, oh, if I just make these changes, and, I've read thousands of scripts, so when the script comes back to me a second time, it's unlikely I'm going to be able to tell the difference, unless I've been very specific unless I'm like, hey, let's work on this. hey, let's work on this together is very different than I passed on this because I felt the protagonist's journey ultimately was unsatisfying. That means I'm just passing on it. You know, and I really did come, you know, people would say, well, why'd they pass? And I'm like, who cares? They passed. That's all that matters. Like, if they weren't passing outright, they would say something different. You know, if the door is open, they say the door is open in a very specific kind of way. But if they pass, just take the pass and move on.
Right. So if the door is open, there's going to be, they let you know there's a continuance, like, please come back or whatever. Pass, you can just feel that door's closed. This is going to close.
I think there's even a please come back that is more a courtesy than it's genuine. I think when people want you to come back, they say, hey, I want you to come back. Hey, I like this. I really like, you know, I want to show this to my bosses, but the only way I can show it to them is if you do X, X, and X. There's no other real version of it, I don't believe. Like when they say, hey, yeah, we'd love, if you do some more work on this, maybe we would reconsider it. I just don't really believe that. In my experience, that's not a real conversation.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.